with what I saw. So in this case, I wanted the connection with the dancers, most of it. So this was a way for me to stay connected with them. And I appreciate it because they got into the role and we communicated through the process. We had rehearsals online, and with Mr. Rain, I was back and forth, just talking about the collaboration. And I wanted to be a women's piece. So basically the feminine energy in different scenarios, you know, connected to the earth and what a feminine power feels like, even in the minimal movements, because the movements are very simple, and yet I think they're very full. So it evolved into the piece that you can see now. So it was moving along through a whole year, basically, because I wanted to portray as well the seasons, and we have the fall, we have the winter a little bit, and we have the summer and the spring. So I wanted to showcase all the seasons merging together and the evolution, you know, the cycles, the different cycles, and how dancers who are very resilient can actually perform in nature in any place. So it was a mix of different things that got into this film. And it was an experiment because I'm not a filmmaker. I'm just a choreographer and a ballet teacher. And the ladies and the girls were filming themselves on the iPhone, so with directions and everything. So it was a lot of work also on the dancers because they had to take their time to portray the role, to get in costume. In the rain. So it was totally on them. So a lot of work was on the dancer because it was very collaborative, even though they had directions. And I told them, okay, this is what I want to see, this angle, but they made the piece happen, you know. So I'm very, very grateful to them. And Mr. Wayne was working on at the same time on the music. So I'm gonna just ask him in a moment to explain, but he had his own process separately. So then we merged both ideas together and it fit. So this is what was very, very surprising and unexpected, because he was working on his side and I was working on my side, and so the dancers. So it was like they just bringing the puzzle together. And I was just so fulfilled by the process. I just loved to have this communication and collaboration. So
yes, I heard that Tatiana was in her backyard, and it doesn't look like that at all. In the film, it looked like it was a cave. And you mentioned that you were trying to portray different seasons. Do the different dancers also portray different energies? Did you think of casting the dancers separately and portraying something separate in every move or every dancer?
Oh, that's a very good question. Actually, I had two very specific costume sets in mind, and I kind of wanted them to do the same thing. And this is something that I have done before. They do the same thing, but everybody's gonna do it differently, because of their background, because of their experience in life, because of where they are. So they did the same choreography, but they all look so different. And that's what is interesting, because if I film one of them alone and I do a whole piece with one dancer, let's say Tatiana, for example, the piece will look so different from another dancer that I choose. So everybody was given the same choreography. A little bit different, was modified depending, because I really like to bring what they know best to do. So if somebody is very artistic and very expressive, I want to capture that. So I feel like, yeah, that's what I enjoy the most. And yeah, so everybody was very, very committed to the movement. And
yeah, I saw that. Well, congratulations to you and your team, because it's amazing. And so grateful that artists like you are still creating movements in film and trying to add art to the world during this time, because I think that is what we need the most. So I'm sure it must have been crazy coordinating all those rehearsals online and getting everybody together. But great job, congratulations. And maybe Edgar wants to add something about the company and about the movement.
Yeah, well, I just have to say kudos to Gisela and all the dancers and Alan for pulling this together. You know, personally, I think that there's absolutely zero substitute for in-person collaboration. Like, I love to see the sweat and the blood coming from the point shoes and, you know, the scuff marks on the Marley floor. And that's all wonderful, but obviously due to the pandemic, we weren't able to, you know, be in the same physical space. And so the concept that Gisela kind of utilized for this piece in terms of having one kind of base root phrase of choreography and seeing how that's interpreted on different bodies, it's conducive that everyone was in a different physical location and not in the one same studio, right? The beauty about being in the studio is that you get to kind of feed off of each other, see what someone is doing, and you're influenced by their movement quality and lots of other things. But, you know, kind of being isolated in your own world, how you internalize that and interpret that yourself, it's kind of nice to see how that is across the women that are featured in this particular film. So that's really nice. But I can't wait to the time that we're all kind of, you know, comfortable and back in the studio collaborating with one another. And, you know, beyond that, it's the whole idea of how do we bring performing arts to the audience, right? And, you know, utilizing technology and live streaming and things like this is wonderful and great. We know that technology is not perfect. You know, just now, right, we're having some technical complications, but I think, you know, when performing artists, we're innovative, right? And so we can adapt and rise to the occasion. And I think that's what we've been able to do. And just very, very, very much looking forward to the time that we can be back in a theater and see, you know, live performance, live music, lighting, and just get that energy all collectively together in one space.
Thank you. And Mr. Green, would you like to talk a little bit about the music, because the music is so nice and intriguing, and it gives the whole effect of that being in the cave in a dark space.
Okay, well, first of all, I was not in the cave in a dark space. And, but let me talk about the music. First of all, last summer I started writing on my own some sort of takeoffs on the chanson of Edith Piaf. I just stumbled across an album of hers and I decided, what the hell, I would write some Edith Piaf type music. And I found some lyrics that I thought nobody had used from her day and set them to music and sort of left it aside. And then that's when I started discussing this project with Giselle. And I had every intention of writing a completely fresh score that didn't have any relation to something that I'd already done. But when I saw the more or less completed material, it wasn't in its final editing, but it was basically all the material that was available. This music came back to me in my head. It's a kind of, it's almost like somebody playing the accordion in one of the Parisian boulevards. So I reorchestrated it. And I have to say, it was quite an adventure because that orchestra that you hear is all computer. And I had to learn all those techniques. I know it's standard for people who write video game music, but it's not standard for me. So that was new. And you know, the funny thing is that the final product has this kind of iconic primitivism. I mean, the choreographic and the videographic aspects of it, very strongly reminiscent of the kind of work that Ruth St. Dennis and Ted Shawn did. Of course, in their day, they did not use experimental music. They used stuff like Chopin and rather conventional music. And when I saw the movement, I just heard in my mind's ear that it needed a pulse. So that was the real impetus to marry that particular music that I'd written to this movement and imagery, and I think the product is stunning. I think Giselle did a wonderful job editing it so that the changes in scene resonate with the phrases of the music, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. We can move maybe and talk a little bit with the dancers, because if anybody would like to share the process, it's almost amazing to the world how you recorded it on your phone and choreographed it and learned it and performed it. So if somebody would love to share the process, it would be great. Tatiana, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, so for me, the process, some elements of it felt more familiar and some felt really explorative. Like, for example, I think all of us have had the experience of like learning choreography from video. So it's not so different to like watch video and like practice choreography. Like, it was cool to have the like rehearsal through Zoom with Gisela, and then I could go back to the videos we took and keep rehearsing by myself. So that part wasn't super challenging, except that like we have really limited space during the lockdown. So I was in my bedroom rehearsing. And then like it got a bit more challenging doing the actual filming because like, for example, in the opening scene, it was raining, I think, for part of it. So I had to figure out how to set up my phone with like a little plate on top of it. Like I leaned it against something and then put a plate so my phone wasn't rained on. So stuff like that was sort of like, wow, I would never have this experience before without doing this sort of project, which is cool. And it felt like an opportunity to be kind of innovative, and certainly just like being outside, but like with pointe shoes on and still like thinking of choreography, felt like, yeah, I definitely think that I explored in ways that I haven't had the opportunity to. So I'm really glad that we did this project. And just sort of in general, it was so cool to have some way, like Giselle said, to stay in touch with the other artists in this company during the lockdown and have something to take our minds off of, you know, the pandemic and all of the adversity everyone was facing. So I think that it was just such a wonderful idea that Gisela had to make this film.
Yeah, I was just looking at the Times Square project the other day. If you guys had a look at it, it is amazing how artists haven't stopped moving and haven't stopped creating and dancing during the pandemic. Anybody else? Maybe Rebecca, Barbara, anybody wants to go first?
All right, I guess I'll go. Or hi guys.
Hi.
So I actually had quite a challenging time. I felt, anyways, learning the choreography through Zoom just because there's time delay, and my Wi-Fi was not like that great at the time. So it was really interesting, and it was a different experience. And what was really cool was, instead of like what I was actually expecting Gisela was going to do was to create a video and then send it to us to watch, but instead she gave like each of us our own choreography, and it is all very similar, but like designed a little bit differently and specifically for like each of us, which was really awesome and nice. And it felt really good to like be working again, you know, in that way. Because I think through the pandemic, for me at least, like I didn't get to really work on anything. It was mostly just like taking classes, you know, inside. That was it. So to work on something was just a really, I don't know, it just brought me back to life a little bit, you know, just as a dancer, to be working on something and doing kind of like a performance in the way that we could for the time, you know. So I hope, you know, we can continue doing more projects like this. It's just a new, innovative, creative way. So yeah, thank you, Gisela. That was a great experience.
Thank you, Ayla. And I know, Barbara, you're joining us from Brazil today. How's the weather there?
Yes. Well, it's hot every day. But yeah, it was a wonderful experience. Thank you so much. It was kind of hard, challenging, right? Everything is like a first time for everything. It's kind of challenging for us. So I remember like trying to learn those steps, and I was like, okay, this is which arm are you lifting? This is the left or the right, right? But it was a great challenge, and I'm so grateful for this.
Thank you so much. Rebecca, do you want to add anything about any incident, any funny thing, any moment that you remember? Because there are always so many memories every time you try to choreograph a piece.
Yeah, for sure. So I wasn't in this particular video that was shown, but I did get to do another film with Gisela that was really one of the most memorable parts of this past year for me, and one of the most rewarding, I think, in a way that I didn't even expect. I had, through some very strange string of luck, the opportunity to spend a lot of time on the coast throughout the experience of quarantine. That was really amazing. And I felt like, so many of us experienced how difficult it was to be doing ballet class in your living room, and just I felt this sense of like just real struggle and frustration, no matter how good you set up your space, no matter like, and it just felt so exhausting. And I kind of, for a long time, really just tapped into the place that I was in, and I spent less focus on becoming a better ballet dancer and more focus on like finding the artist in myself, and finding that in kind of a sense of sensuality in the way that I was experiencing the space and the ocean, and being able to like the way that we experience our senses as dancers is huge. That's it's everything. If you break dance down, it's the way you experience yourself in space. And I feel like that was kind of what I really had the opportunity to do in a more and within the space of choreography. So the piece that we ended up doing was made in the Bay. It was like Gisela had choreographed some movements, and then I took that and did them in the water. And just being able to do that felt so freeing and so fulfilling in so many ways. So I don't know if that answers your question, but so it was just, I felt really grateful to be able to bring dance into that space, as opposed to simply getting to, enjoy the beach. That's delightful. But really to be able to experience that part of your art in a different place felt really rewarding.
Thank you for that. I mean, yes, the part that you said where you almost danced in water, it's unreal how dancers can literally transport themselves into a certain space. And when I watched the film, I really felt that the dancers in the film were very animalistic or kind of in the space and very real. And like you said, you're dancing in water. It's amazing how you guys do that. And I hope some of the others also get to experience this. But Gisela, I'm coming back to you and, just trying to understand what is your, you made a lot of films during this period and choreographed a lot. What is your hope for the future, and where are you taking these pieces next? Do you have any idea right now?
I think that generally I tend to get inspired by whatever happens in my life in general. So then the way that I found during the pandemic was to make videos, because I wanted to stay connected with dancers, and many other companies were doing similar things. But it's true that these videos were very raw, and that's something that I really, really wanted to showcase. The human behind the dancer, the technical dancer, the women behind ballet technique. So that's something that I still want to continue to do, like raw movement, like something more real, more emotions, less technique. I want like actresses, not so much of a technical person. So I wouldn't focus too much on that going forward. And with the openings in the city and how things are getting better and everything. So I think we're gonna just stand by and see what happens. So I would love to be back in the studio or even outside, because now we can have rehearsals outdoors and it's so nice, it's the summer. And of course, continue to collaborate with our musicians like Mr. Green. We also, with other videos that we have done before, we had Steve Saint from Canada. And like Rebecca was just mentioning, the piece that she did, which is Initial Album, is about renewal. And Mr. Green was also the composer for that piece. So it's like a continued collaboration and going forward. So depending what the situation is. For now, we're just gonna stand by in the summer, and we would love to do, I was actually talking to Edgar a little bit earlier, like outdoor performance. That's something that I would love to do, and then live stream again. So yeah,
thanks to live stream, we can be anywhere in the world and watch your films. But this is a question that I was I was discussing this with one of our colleagues during Dance Week, and this is open to anybody. Anybody can take this question. How you said you wanted to focus on raw emotions and raw movement, but I'm sure that only happens because these dancers have been working for years and training on their technique. And how would you define the importance of technique training in today's social media world, where people go into classes and it's all about just doing a choreography, taking a video, and people become stars? So anybody can take this question and talk about the importance of technique versus social media choreography.
Yeah. Go ahead, Gisela. Oh, okay. I guess I'll take that one. I think that it's always extremely important to have a foundation, right? And perhaps I'm biased because I had several years of intense, really awesome classical ballet training. But I think understanding that discipline and having that foundation gives you the freedom to break all the rules, right? So understanding how the body should work and what you want your shapes to look like will then just enable you to know how you want to go beyond and stretch further and take it to that next level. But it's hard to really reach a sense of excellence and control when you start doing the kind of crazy things, unless you really are kind of grounded in understanding the importance of the discipline of a core technique, whatever it is, right? Because there are lots of awesome techniques and different styles of dance that folks are able to kind of study and learn from. But I think it's really, really important to have that foundation and not just stick with that foundation, to be able to take it and stretch it further and go beyond that.
Thank you. Gisela, do you want to add?
Yes, it's like more like a side note, because I agree with Edgar that like every dancer who is here right now, they have been working since a child in technique, and with their fundamentals in ballet and contemporary dance and everything. But I do think that the world we live in right now, with all these TikTok videos and like everything has to be fast and leg here, leg there, it kind of loses the lyrical and the quality of the dance, and it's becoming something different. So that would be this thing that I'm not so comfortable with right now. So it's more about the mirror, what it looks like, instead of what it really feels, because I think that any artist can just do an arm or a very simple gesture and still communicate what the piece is about. So this is what I come back again to, a more theatrical way of working, even though if it's technical, but it shouldn't, the focus of course is technical, because I think that the dancer has to own what he's doing, right? Because he has to be secure. But at the same time, there has to be a room, like Edgar said, to break rules or to interpret. And that comes with experience in general. So I think experience has, especially with everything we have been going through now, right? The past year, I think everybody's just so much more open to explore different things. And I don't know how you know about this, but.
No, and Gisela, I completely agree. I think that it's important to have a good understanding of both the old and the new, and I think the best art in whatever medium it is, performing art, visual art, etc. But the best art, in my opinion, pays homage to the traditions that have held true and trusted over time, and being able to do something new with it and explore and take it even further, right? I think in its own right, some of the pop culture things that we see today on social media is great. It's fun. It's wonderful. But there's something special about keeping traditions alive, especially ones that have lasted for hundreds of years, like classical ballet as an example, right? But now, whether it's putting on point shoes or taking them off, incorporating, aerial, and lots of other wonderful things, we can really do it all. But and I think we can find a way to appreciate everything and still hold true to what makes us all kind of just kind of relish in our own inherent talent, right? Because we're all special and we all can kind of thrive in one particular style or genre or the other, and it's all important, it's all necessary, and it should all be celebrated as dance for us.
Exactly, and every single dancer here in this meeting and in general in our company, it's so different and so they own their personalities, and this is, I think, with Edgar, every single time we're very inspired by that individuality among what could be technical, or even if it's a group piece, but you can sense every person is his own artist, and that what makes it so special,
One last thing for me, then we can open it to anybody else in the audience if they want to talk about it going forward with this theory. I mean, I love social media and no means. I agree with Edgar. He said that you have to be in touch with what's happening and appreciate that. But there are a lot of students when I teach, I mean, they don't understand the concept of delayed gratification, and they want it now and they want immediate gratification. How, in your opinion, anybody can speak, is how do you think we can bring them back to the thought process, the classical ballet or anything traditional, or just making that foundation is really important before you move on to the fun, quick things on the social media? What do you think can change this? Do we have to start it from when they're children, or do we have to change the whole educational system?
Well, I'd like to address that a little bit. I think we're living on a planet where everybody is hopped up on dopamine. Every moment has to lead to another emotional rush. And that's partly why we're all so crazy. And that's one thing that engaging in these kind of thoughtful, slowly developing projects brings to the world slowing the world down. And, you know, we did 7 minutes and a few seconds for this particular piece, but really it has a world in itself. And so it's slowed down to an entire system. How do we do that? Well, I think it's just the example that we set and then communicate. I mean, I don't know.
In the world and making the world run are just being taken over by machines. But then you're kind of like left with like, well, then what's left for people to do? And I feel like then like that's where art is it. Like art is creating art, like being an artist is what's not what's left, but in a sense it's like what's at the base of things. So I feel like no matter how much things speed up and there's this quickness and this, how many viewers do you have? Like what's really at the base of us as artists, at least for me, is the communication, like the being in the present with other dancers, the like physical, tangible creation. And I don't think that will ever be taken away. I hope not. I don't know. That's what feels so real about it.
Yeah, we just hope that AI and robots do not take over creating art and dancers, and I don't think that will happen anytime soon. So thank you for your thoughts, everybody. With that, I just want to open it up to Jay, Dasha, Eileen, or Jennifer. Anybody has any questions from our artists?
Can I just say one quick thing, Push? One little thing that I wanted to add, actually, because Rebecca made me think of this, and Mr. Green as well. I think that artists, we are responsible in a way to reflect the reality. So like Mr. Green was saying, given the example, you know, and patience to work their craft for each person, whether it's in painting and music or dance, especially dance that is so physical. It really takes time to shape like the sculptures, right? So it really takes time for the young generations now to really work in the craft and be patient to learn that through hard work comes gratification, not just instant. So
yes. Totally agreed. So if you don't have any questions, we will be ending this now, and I will restream the whole video and Sorry for the technical errors and delays that happened today, but it was beautiful. I have watched the film many times and I loved it. And I watched a lot of other work that you and your team did, Gisela, so it was beautiful. And I would like to just thank all of you for being here tonight and always supporting NYC10 and NYC Dance Week and showcasing your work. So hopefully next year we will be live and we will be in a theater and we will be performing there together. I mean, I'm sure all of you miss the energy and just meeting people. And like Rebecca said, just contributing and meeting people and connecting is the most beautiful thing about art. Thank you, everybody. If anybody has any last thoughts, please feel free to add before we close this discussion.
Okay.
Hi, Jay. I see your face.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to make a comment and just ask one question. I know that, you know, we are beleaguing the 7-minute thing, but which they say is the optimum attention span of people. But I honestly, for me, I have enjoyed it because it has given me sneak peeks at programs I would not normally see, and it has intrigued me, and it has gotten me to research different things that I wouldn't normally have pursued. So in that aspect, you know, you have to get your foot in, as they say, and then, you know, the rest, I think it will speak for itself. But I'm just curious in assigning, because in assigning the different dances, I know it was said each dancer got almost similar choreography, but just a little different. And I was just curious, what was it about each dancer that the choreography was changed a little bit? What was it about that dancer that made them, you know, assign that specific one to them?
Yes, thank you for the question. Yeah, well, I think like I have been working with the dancers for some of them for years, some of them were new, but I got to know them because we work in the studio, and I have a sense of what they are able to do and how they can portray the choreography or the role. So the choreography was a little bit different to each one of them because I wanted to showcase specifically their gifts. And that's something that, because I danced for so many years before in the past, I've done difficult choreography, counts were impossible, and things that I didn't feel like I was enjoying the choreography. So I always thought, if I ever choreograph, I want the dancer to really enjoy what I'm doing, what they're doing, you know, and the process, because it's very frustrating to try to do something when the choreographer asks you to do something and it feels awkward. So I never wanted that to happen. So if I need to change the choreography and adapt it to the dancer, or I get inspired by them because they just move a little bit different, I will always choose that and not my comfort. Even if I want some specific movement, I will be like, oh, no, actually I want that because that looks good on you. So, or each do us like that. And Edgar, he works the same way, right? I mean,
well, I might be a bit more sadistic than you are, Gisela, because I think a lot of times, you know, I sometimes even not having worked with a dancer for so long, I kind of take a look and I can see what I believe they can do or what I think they should be doing, even before they think so, right? And I kind of just push and push and push, and we make some beautiful, amazing things happen. And I like the sweat, I like the struggle and the pain, and I enjoy seeing that on stage and in the studio alike. I want it to look hard and difficult because in my eyes, dancers were superheroes, right? I mean, who else wants to wear freaking point shoes and like dance on a stage? Like it's hard stuff. And so I just have the utmost respect for the fellow artists, particularly the women dancers that wear point shoes and kind of go through that struggle, you know, more than I could ever imagine. But it's something I think is beautiful, and I like to employ just like that share kind of, grit and harshness to reality, because, being a native New Yorker, and particularly after the past, 18 months that we've had, I like to see and incorporate all of that, all of those feelings into the work that I put out there. And the same for the music that I'm inspired by and that I like to kind of collaborate and work with as well, with composers and musicians alike. So, yeah.
That's true. Edgar tends to push the dancer to overcome their own challenges. And that's something that he was the first choreographer who choreographed on me that did that in New York. Because I've been so used to work on lyrical, contemporary ballet, but Edgar pushed my limits. And I was, what? I don't know if I can do it. And like, yes, you can. And that I will be forever grateful for that. Remember Enamorata and all the pieces? With
yeah.
It was that challenge. The dancers do create challenge, but also there is a fine line. You can challenge them to the point that they will be able to do, but not make them look ridiculous or anything like that. So I think Edgar has a good eyes for that, because it can be a little window.
Oh yeah, I love beautiful things, and I think I choose to work with really just gorgeous and talented dancers. And when you have great artists that you can kind of mold and twist and force into all of these wonderful situations, I love it. That's what makes me happy and just feel awesome inside. So yeah.
Can I add a little something to this discussion? I have a background as an architect many years ago. And as an architect, when you design a building, you don't just design the way it looks, but you have to design also how it's going to be put together. So down to the tiniest detail, you have to be able, the building has to be buildable. And most of the people who do that work, the hard hats, and the technicians, they aren't like artists in that they have, this tremendous talent and 20 or 30 years of experience. You have to do something that they can do automatically and make something beautiful out of it. And that's kind of the approach that I started taking as a composer, which is really taking found materials, whatever they are. In the case of this last piece, that I had really to execute it on my computer, so I had to use the materials with those limitations. But taking it and then making it into something otherworldly.
Yes, I love that architect example, and also what Edgar said. Sometimes most of the dancers, like I didn't know until my teacher pushed me that I could do something, but there is always a fine line, because a lot of people might just feel like they cannot do it at all. And Edgar, kudos to you if you can do that with a dancer. And I don't think we have any more questions. Thank you for these wonderful.
Can I just say one more thing? I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
We love it.
Okay. No, I know the dance was choreographed around nature, but honestly, when I was watching, because it was without sound, I was just watching. It just seemed that it corresponded for me to the whole quarantine situation, where she was unfurling and coming up and out, like us coming out of this quarantine. This is how I was portraying it in my head. And, just having fun. And you see this lightness of being, especially when one of the dancers was playing in the water and everything. It just seemed so joyful and stuff. So I want to know if some of that was influenced. I know, like I said, it was nature, and it's interesting that, most dancers would say dance is life. And here you have dancers in nature, which is life, so I want to know a little bit more. Like if any of that pass-through was thought of in the choreography or in designing the dance.
Oh, yes, for sure, because it was done during quarantine. It was started like in September, August, right? I can't even remember very well. So the whole winter we had like partial lockdowns as well. So in my case, it was definitely about the feeling of just being more connected to nature. So because each dancer had a very different scenario, so I would be like, oh, so where are you gonna be? What's gonna be your background? So it was adapted to site specific to what they have. I remember Tatiana showing me pictures. This is my backyard. This is what I have. This is, and I'm like, oh, just be careful because if you put your point shoes on, you have the floor is so uneven. Just be careful. And when was the rain? For example, Fiona, who is not here today, but she was in the rain as well as Tatiana. I wanted the scene in the rain. So this is something that I thought before. It's not just happened that she was in the rain. I wanted a rain scene. I wanted a scene where everybody was covered in mud. So that was previously thought. So like I said before, it was about the feminine energy connected to the earth, and earth in all the seasons. So through the rain, through the nice weather, through the winter, sorry, some of the dancers were in the rain all soaked, but it was the pleasure. So it's a lot, I think, because I can't touch, so we couldn't touch each other, we couldn't be in the studio. I think I missed that feeling of, so the touch, and not just giving a hand to someone or partnering with somebody, it was also with nature. Like, how does it feel, the rain? And Rebecca was talking about this. And this relates a little bit to the piece that we did before, because some of the elements of enjoying the senses, like she said, were in this piece. So I don't know if this answers your question, Jay.
No, yeah, totally. I just, like I said, I love that connectivity of, being in nature and reconnecting. And I just felt like it was almost like a rebirth, it felt like a rebirth, especially like that opening piece of her, that dancer just unfurling and just rising up. It was just so intense. And so, yeah, I loved it.
And actually, Tatiana was the first person that I started choreographing on. And I'm like, I just want you to be like a emerging creature. So it was definitely something,
Yes.
Yeah. And Jay, to your point, I think that there's something about, as creative artists, we create work that's necessary for the moment, right? And we can only hope that it's going to be applicable and relevant forever, right? And whatever it is that we're kind of dealing with, in the world at that given time. But it's whether you're acutely aware and conscious of what you're doing in the moment, but just knowing that, hey, I want to create something where we're emerging, and then we experience the joy and the love of nature and all of that. But it's like, that's what we needed at the moment of, COVID, where we're kind of, on lockdown and, stuck wherever it is that we are, right? So, as artists, we kind of, we figure it out, and we produce the art that we need to kind of satisfy our own souls and ourselves and share with people. So that's kind of what I take from what Gisela was able to create with the dancers.
Yeah, and I remember telling the girls in an email, like, just think that you went through hell, you're all dirty, and you're just emerging and just coming up, something like that, I believe it was. So back in the time, and yeah, I just loved how they portrayed it. So Tatiana, I don't know if you want to add something to this scene, because you really got into character. You like, so it was so inspiring to see, and the scenario was perfect. So yes, thank you, Jay, because it's so touching when the audience can watch something and they have their own interpretation. Like, it could relate to what I wanted to, but it actually you got what I wanted to portray. So that makes me really happy.
Yay!
Me too, even without the sound and the technical error. So I guess maybe it worked in our favor, but I'm going to try and play the film one last time before we go on. Unless, Tatiana, do you want to add something?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess like I mentioned earlier, it was a really cool opportunity, especially to be in another setting. And I think sort of like maybe something about getting out of the studio and also just being like totally by myself with just my phone. I felt like, yeah, like, I don't know, kind of free in a certain way. And like part of it, I'm not sure if it's in the whole edited version or not, was just me sort of like trying to keep myself warm because it was like coming fall. So I was just like, before I would start like the actual choreography phrase, I would just like start moving around a lot. And then I ended up sending Gisela a lot of clips that were like more improv. And I think some of it, especially the parts that's just like crawling around through the vines and stuff, ended up in the intro that was kind of me like getting into the pose to start her phrase.
Yeah.
So it was like a really cool thing that happened for me because I don't like do much improv by myself. Like Rebecca is really beautiful at it and like knows how to improvise really well. But like for me, this was a totally kind of new thing. So that was really cool. Thank you, Gisela.
Okay, so let me try and see if we can watch this film once again. I'm sorry, I keep saying movie because it's so wonderful, but let's watch the dance film once again if the technology cooperates with me. It didn't help, but we watched beautiful movement. So sorry. I mean, I'm gonna stream this again maybe later on and without Zoom, so our viewers can watch. I was just gonna ask you, do we have the editor? Because I loved the ending. It was so beautiful, and then I saw it was edited by you, Gisela. So that is an amazing talent too, because I love the way you put everything together and edited it. Beautiful. Yes, Jay is giving Yes, a round of applause to all of you. Beautiful video, of course. And thank you for bringing this to us again. And thank you, a very big thank you. And sorry for the technology, but thank you for being patient and being here every year with us. And very sorry, Mr. Green, because it completely messed up your music. However, I watched it and I had the privilege of listening to the music and everything beautifully. And I will share it with all our viewers so they can watch it again on Facebook and YouTube. And you guys can check it out on our NYC Dance Week Facebook page. This is our last day of NYC Dance Week. We still have a lot of free dance classes that will go on till the end of June. And our closing party tomorrow at Lakeside, Brooklyn from 3 to 5 p.m. Thank you once again. And I just want to give a big round of applause to everybody who is present here today.